Cop. My name is Julian Harper, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here with my two co-hosts today. First of all, Noel Leader.
Peace, family.
All right. Second of all, and we missed you last week or the last session, Mike. Michael Greys, aka Big Mike.
Namaste. Good to be here.
And as you guys know, we always have a historical piece from our in-house historians, plural. Today, in 1967, is the anniversary of the Newark riots. Michael.
Yeah, the Newark riots is near and dear to us. Certainly, it's right across the river. That was one of the more brutal riots that lasted 6 days. Certainly, with gentrification actually going on, and with the Black community being oppressed by the Newark Police Department. They were called in. They alleged that Black folks were throwing garbage cans off of roofs, et cetera, things like that. Shots being fired. It started when several people were arrested and the police officer got very physical with them. It expanded over the next 6 days. State of emergency was called by the governor. The military came in. National Guard were charged and came in, and they treated the Black community as if we were in Fallujah or Syria somewhere, and killed several people, claiming that they were just defending themselves, which soldiers are trained to do, to kill, not ask questions. You see the enemy, you kill the enemy. And they looked at Black folks as if they were enemies. Very brutal riot, and certainly there are a lot of survivors of that riot still around to this very day in the Newark area. And we shouldn't forget just how bad it gets when you have mayors, governors, elected officials call in several police departments in neighboring areas all over New Jersey, and then compile a situation and make it even worse by calling in the National Guard. And at that time, as you know, there was a war going on, and they were training for Vietnam, and they used that urban guerrilla tactics and actually killed Black folks.
All right. Also, Michael, on this date, the passing of Dr. John Henry Clark.
Oh man, look, not only was he one of our all-time great historians, but to me personally, a lover of history, the greatest storyteller that I've ever met, that I ever got to sit and talk with, that I ever just listened to. To this very day, you can listen to video footage of Dr. John Henry Clark. He makes the most difficult and complex situations in history so plain. It's like it's a living history when he talks about it. He makes it so clear, makes it so relative and germane to your existence that he just never gets the credit as one of the all-time great storytellers. Not only does he have one of the greatest information bases, but his ability to reel you in, irrespective of what discipline of life you might inhabit. You're just gonna love the way he lays out a story. So long live the spirit of Dr. John Henry Clark, Harlem's own, one of our greatest.
And I would encourage anyone and everyone in our community, especially during the time of this pandemic, to maybe turn off the TV and punch up YouTube, and you can catch a lot of Professor Clark's lectures on video. I mean, he's not only informative, but he's also entertaining. He knows how to keep your attention. Even if you have some youngsters around, they would definitely enjoy his lectures, his historical lectures. Very important. It's a whole lot of information, and it's something that our young people and old people need to know as it relates to our history.
Oh yeah,
Professor John Henry Clark. Go to YouTube. You can catch a lot of his lectures.
Yeah, listening to him is very educating, but for lack of a better word, entertaining. and very thought-provoking. I definitely enjoy reading his works and listening to him. Noel, also, it's the birthday of Ida B. Wells.
Yes, Sister Wells, who was a activist, a civil rights activist. She was a journalist. She was a writer. Her birthday is actually July 16, 1862, and she wrote a book, or a series of literature called Southern Horrors, lynching law in all of its phases. She took a lot of interest in the lynching epidemic that took place in this country. She wrote about it. She interviewed victims, survivors, and their family members. She was threatened, but we have to always remember Queen Mother Ida B. Wells, who was a warrior and a race woman as well. Always took up the cause of her people. So she was definitely an activist that we should remember.
Well, Ida B. Wells is one of the greatest we've ever produced. Ida B. Wells dedicated her entire adult life to fight the institution of lynching. Certainly, our major civil rights organization, NAACP, and others got their inception, their real start, based on doing something around lynching. You know, what happened in Springfield, Illinois, and they took it from there when they saw a whole lot of black men being lynched in Springfield, Illinois, and then they went up to the Niagara Movement, which was an independent black organization with the biggest names that we had at that time, and that organization eventually morphed into what's the NAACP. Ida B. Wells was a warrior queen of the highest order. When we talk about Ida B. Wells, we're in rarefied air because she was as courageous as could be. They tried to throw off a train, and she was relegated to the colored section, which was cold, not clean, and she insisted on sitting in the white section of a train. And when the conductor tried to throw off the train, she fought him, bit his hand, and fought hard. And when she went to court, she was able to win in court because if you know anything about Ida B. Wells, she dressed to the nines and was so well dressed and so well mannered, so professional, that the judge could not believe that this woman actually fought a train conductor. She was just looking so fine that she was able to beat the actual charges. So long live her spirit. Again, rarefied air to even mention her name, one of the greatest we ever produced, and a fighter to the day she died. And as Noel pointed out, an extremely great writer.
And not only was she gorgeous in terms of winning her case, she had the truth and the facts on her side as well. She was a paying customer, just like any of the white patrons that paid to get on the train, and she had every right to get her money's worth on a trip.
That's right.
Well, also on this date, Marcus Garvey was entered into federal prison in 1925. He was actually arrested on June 1st, 1922, but he was entered into the federal prison system on this date in 1925 for allegedly for mail fraud because of Black Star Line. And, he did such phenomenal work to try to get Africans to understand that we have to go, when I'm talking about Africans and Blacks in this country, because of diaspora, to go back to Africa. He had a Back to Africa movement. And they were so opposed to it. They did anything they could to disrupt that movement and to criminalize Marcus Garvey. He was a phenomenal speaker. This man did so much for our community, but the attack on him was relentless and nonstop by the government.
No doubt about it. He was a writer just like Ida B. Wells was, a great race man, known for being a race man. Race first is what he always said, was thought of so much that certainly you have to look at things that you found present in the current Nation of Islam to this very day. Some of it has to be attributed to the great Marcus Mosiah Garvey. He was just one of the greatest magnetic, charismatic men that you could ever imagine. And as Julian did point out, they used mail fraud as a way to get rid of him because he was selling bonds, and he utilized the mail to do that. So it was no emails, it wasn't any electronic services where you could send money. So he used the mail system where people would buy bonds for the Back to Africa movement to finance the ships, which would eventually take black folks back home, not down home, back home. So they, with nothing else to get him on, that's what J. Edgar Hoover utilized. In the early years of the FBI, that's what they used. They used mail fraud, and unfortunately, they got some black folks because they went all across the board trying to get black folks to be complainants in that suit, but certainly everyone said no, that's okay. But you can always rent a tom or two and use them to be a complaint against Marcus Garvey, and that's what the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover did.
And when you look at the history of Marcus Garvey, he was one of the most intelligent, articulate, yet non-threatening to white people leader that there was. He said that the white man has a right to run his society, run his world, and he encouraged African Americans and Africans throughout the diaspora to create a world for our own. He said, the white man has an army, let us create an army. He has jobs and factories, let us create jobs and factories of our own. Stop begging him for a job. We don't have to. Let's create jobs for ourselves. And you would figure that somebody with that line of thinking would be supported and appreciated by racist white America who didn't want African Americans in their midst. They didn't want to live by us. They didn't want to hire us. They want to train us. Fine. He said, that is all yours. Let's develop and create for ourselves. But one thing you have to understand about white America, racist America, is if you lay down, they don't like you. If you sit down, they don't like you. If you stand up, they don't like you.
That's right.
If you're a Martin Luther King, who's a Christian, loving activist, they don't like you. If you're a Malcolm X, who's articulate and a rebel, but nonviolent, they don't like you.
That's right. Go ahead, brother.
The Black Panther Party, who believes in picking up guns, or the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, who believe up picking up guns, they don't like you.
That's
so
right.
If you're Martin Luther King, if you're Malcolm X, if you're a Black Panther, if you lay down, if you sit down, if you stand up, they don't like you. Marcus Garvey was incarcerated, as you stated, Julian, on this date. His incarceration was unjustified. The only thing he wanted to do is to organize African Americans, help us to do for self, so we can get out of this rut that we find ourselves in this wilderness of North America.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's our historical piece for today. A lot of information, gentlemen, and we greatly appreciate it. Now to our first topic. Another officer placed his knee in the neck of a woman. Now, I have to ask Noel, this seems to be a nonstop occurrence. Now we know that 4 officers went to jail. Another officer in New York was arrested and is going to be prosecuted. When does it stop?
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to ever stop. And Julian and Michael, as we all say, one of the reasons why this continues to happen because officers aren't sufficiently effectively prosecuted, convicted, and incarcerated. In this incident that happened in Florida under Miami Gardens Police Department, Officer Jody Martell, he was doing uniform duty in the club, and a sister who happened to be 4 months pregnant, her name is Sophia Satchel. She had gotten allegedly an argument with the owner of the particular facility that she went to, and he wanted her given a citation saying that she should never enter the location again. She went to a vehicle. Make a long story short, she got into a verbal dispute with police officer, and all of this is on video. You can pull up on YouTube. And he literally dragged her out the car. And after dragging her out the car, he put his knee on her neck, something similar to what happened to our brother Floyd. So even after all of the attention and criticism that all police officers are getting with chokeholds and a knee on neck, You know, it was so casual. He didn't have a care in the world. He put his knee on her neck. He held her hand down while his sergeant held her other hand down. He had a taser, and she's pregnant, mind you, 4 months pregnant. He put the taser on her belly and shocked her twice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she wound up miscarriaging and losing her child. It was totally unnecessary. It was excessive force. Fortunately, he's been arrested, but there's no victory until he's convicted and prosecuted and sentenced. I know other individuals who've done far less that caused the death of a pregnant woman's child and was charged with murder. Unfortunately, he hasn't been charged with that. So we'll pay attention to this. But it's, and the one thing I want to mention about this officer also, as well, is that he was on film prior to assaulting another black man on video. He ultimately got fired for that case, but it was after the fact. Now that his name is blowing up. If you remember when we talked about David Afanador, the New York City police officer who got arrested recently for choking a male black. He was involved in a previous incident where he assaulted a teenager. It was on video. He was released by a judge. Even though the assault was on video, the judge found him not guilty. So I said that to say, in most of these cases, police officers that engage in these egregious acts of brutality have a history that is not checked, and it's not until they do something that makes a public eye where you have this arrest and hopefully a conviction. But this police officer who murdered the fetus of our sister, had a history of violence. He was sued 4 times and they settled police brutality cases. So he has a history. Unfortunately, the sister had to lose a child for him to hopefully wind up spending some time in jail. But as we always say on the program, the refusal, no new laws, no new bills, no new studies. When officers act criminally abusive, they have to be arrested. And failure to do that, failure to prosecute them and incarcerate them is why, Julian, when you ask when will it stop, it's never going to stop as long as officers aren't fair that they're going to have to pay a price for brutality.
Well, let me tell you something. Today, I was watching the news, and they had the Sergeant Benevolence Association president, Mullins, on television. And this is probably one of the only times I really and totally agree with him. He said the issues that are occurring in this city are occurring because the mayor is not doing his job, and that the district attorney's office is not prosecuting the cases. And the reason why I agree with him, because if they did their job when police officers violated the law, if they prosecuted police officers when they violated people's rights and they used excessive force and abusive tactics against the community, it would not happen. So he's right, but he's talking about it versus the community, and I'm talking about it versus law enforcement and it's in its totality. So I agree with you, Noel. It's not going to stop until they address it, but it has to be addressed across the board. When we talk about these police officers that are overly aggressive, that are violating the laws, because he even said it, the laws are there, and we agree with him. But start holding these members of law enforcement accountable for the heinous acts that they commit against the community. They are here to serve the community, and they are failing us continuously and constantly across the board. And I'm not saying all of them, other than their ability not to hold the other ones accountable, but the ones who are physically making these attacks and the ones who are turning a blind eye, everybody has to be held accountable.
Well, certainly, if you look at the video footage of this situation, you can see it was totally unnecessary, start to finish. Nothing should have been done to her in the way that it was done. The taser was totally unnecessary. Deadly physical force was totally unnecessary. Force itself was totally unnecessary in this situation. You have to have a disrespect for human life to even point a taser at a pregnant Black woman, because you would not do that to your own woman. You would not have aimed the taser at a white woman who was pregnant that way. Now, with the legal aspect of it aside, because certainly that cop should be charged in the most severest way humanly possible. But where's the National Organization of Women? That's now with 2 W's, National Organization of White Women. Where are they when this sister is in need of a woman's support? Where are they for Breonna Taylor? Where are they when it happened to Sandra Bland, Charlene Lyles in Seattle? So many other situations that happened to Black women. The sister in Georgia who was killed by a police officer walking by her window 1 o'clock in the morning while she's playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew. And she's just callously killed. Where's the National Organization of White Women? Here you got Black foolish women that are part of that organization and don't raise the salient questions with respect to where are they when Black women are killed in the streets or when they lose a child like this. You get angry because we don't feel it anymore. We are inundated with so much news in a 24-hour cycle now that somehow we don't feel it. We we're narcotized, we're just numb when we see situations like that. It's more than him just losing his job. You know, what he needs is, I won't even mention. You know as a Black man what he needs. Totally unnecessary, using the so-called color of law to destroy a Black life and to humble somebody that did not need to be humbled. It's just disgraceful to look at something like that. And we walk around as men, when we see something like that, we know what all of our instincts are telling us to do when we see something like that. It's a damn shame.
And for those who didn't see the video, you know, the officer actually has her on her, she's on her back. And his knee is so, I mean, she's screaming out in pain. You can imagine if a grown man put his knee on a woman's neck. She's on her back looking up, and he has his knee on his neck, and he's holding one hand, the sergeant holding the other hand, and he literally puts the taser on her stomach, shocks her. But the one thing I want to mention is also in many of these incidents, you know, only he was charged. The sergeant was there. The sergeant did nothing. He lied on his reports as it relates to how it happened. He said she was kicking and fighting him. The video shows that didn't happen, but that's perjury. But before the video came out, the sergeant, didn't he say, "Oh, listen, this really didn't happen"? You know, what I'm saying is that once again, you see only one officer being charged when all officers that were present, both officers that were present should have been charged similarly. And that's another reason why officers, get away with not stopping an officer that is overtly brutal because they're not charged or they're not held accountable. So that sergeant, he was a sergeant. He had the stripes on the whole 9 yards. He should have been arrested, fired, and arrested as well.
See, these are the problems. There's no accountability. You know, when they talk about issues like this, members of law enforcement or any part of our community fairly and justly for the crimes that they commit, for the inappropriate acts that they commit, for the violations they commit, all we're asking for is some fairness and some accountability. Now, first of all, it should never happen. We shouldn't even have to address losing a member of our community to some senseless actions by people who don't belong in law enforcement. You know, first of all, we got to get rid of them in the first place. But when they do make these violations, they have to be held accountable to the full extent of the law, and that's not what's happening, and that is the biggest problem.
That's right.
All right. Anything else, guys, before I go to the next topic? Okay. Michael, there was a woman who had thrown a Molotov cocktail at an NYPD van. And I know we spoke about this earlier. What's going on with that particular case?
Yeah, we had spoke about it earlier, but one aspect that we really didn't explore that needs to be looked at now. In federal court, Samantha Shader, who's 27 years old, claimed that she was given the Molotov cocktail by a group of Black men and women. She claims that she felt she had to utilize it because she was the only white person there and that a Black man handed it to her. Consequently, she had to use it and threw it at the van and the officers luckily were able to get out of the van, chase her down, and catch her. But we didn't know at the time, in federal court, she testified that a black man gave it to her. Okay, now the police officers, now they could have done, when she switched on that white thing, she's supposed to be part of Black Lives Matter protesting, but what did she do? She turned to the old white card that they always do, blaming it on a black man. Well, she thought that that would fly with those police officers. Well, she didn't even take into account that maybe them police officers a little bit ticked off that she threw a Molotov cocktail at them. Well, they did their due diligence. And in doing that, found out when they searched her car that it had a note from a white man in it. And the white man's name, his name was Timothy Ammerman. He was the one, in fact, who gave, because when they tracked him down, he immediately admitted to them that he had given her that, as well as several other bottles and additional masks, and in a letter, and he had his fingerprints on the bottles, on the letter. So they did a real good investigation, found out that he gave her all that, wished her good luck, wished her to be safe in her endeavor. And now he's looking at 10 years, a possible 10 years in prison for civil disorder conspiracy. Yet, we didn't know at the time, she had blamed it on a group of black men. And she had the temerity, mind you, to describe the black men. She said that one of the black men was a thick black man with skinny dreadlocks that were multicolored. The second black man was a smaller black man who wore a hat concealing his hair. And the black woman was described with poofy hair. I ain't around white folks much, so I don't know what poofy hair means. But that's how she described the two black men and the black woman who gave her the Molotov cocktail. Yet, as was discovered later on, it was a white man, in fact, who gave her that and wished her well in her endeavor.
Now, you know, Mike, they always talk about when these certain incidents create more laws, when police officers are involved in certain conducts. Now, that's a law that they should put in place. When these folks come up with these imaginary African-American people who assist them, that should be an additional charge, which should be a felony. If you commit a crime and you try to invent some accomplice, and as you stated, 99.999% of the time it's going to be a male black. If it's a white person, they're going to blame someone black who have committed the crime. That should be an additional charge. Well, Noel?
I mean, you know, this is, and I'm glad Michael, thank you for bringing the story up here. A mitigated goal, is that what they say, Mike? Of this white woman to not only commit a felony, but when caught, now this is supposed to be a white woman who's participating in a movement against police criminality against African Americans. This is a white woman who's supposed to, by her mere presence amongst protesters, are supposed to be saying that I'm with you and I support what you all are about. When she's caught, what does she do? You know, her white face comes out. She points a finger at a black man. Lord forbid if they would have arrested black men that fitted the description in an effort to get out of what she did, say, yeah, that's the man who handed me the Molotov cocktail. She even had created in her mind a description of these fictitious, non-existent black men. To show
Go
you
ahead,
the
brother.
level
Go ahead, brother.
of thinking pattern of this white woman. You know, to create a black man that didn't exist as the originator of this particular plot.
Yes, sir.
Coerced her and sort of intimidated her into committing the crime. This is the mind of a white woman. These are the same white women who called police on a child selling water. These are the same white women who called the police on a black family doing a barbecue. The same white woman who called on a woman sleeping in her college dorm. The same white woman who called a black man after entering his apartment. We have to understand what white women are doing to members of the African American community. And I agree with Julian. She should be doubly charged. And Michael always brings up cases in the past where white women murdered their children and claimed it was a black man, white woman family. You have to look at it.
Yeah, now
one of the things
it's eerily similar to Amber Geiger. As you remember,
That's right.
Amber Geiger was the white female police officer who went into a black man, both of John's apartment, and killed him.
That's right.
Now, she claimed initially that her key now, opened his door. She lied. Then once it was found out that her key could not open his door, she claimed that the door was ajar. And that after working a little overtime, she was so tired that she just walked into her apartment. You're not going to walk even into your apartment if the door is ajar. You have a set of protocols you're going to utilize before you go into even your apartment or your house if the door is open and the door is left ajar. Now, she should have turned the lights on. Most people have a light switch somewhere near your door. Whatever type of door, front door, back door, there's a light switch somewhere. She didn't utilize that. She walks into a dark apartment and starts shooting when she's seen a shadow, a silhouette. She started shooting. Yet the neighbors heard the banging on the door, insisting that he let her in, insisting and demanding that he let her in, banging on his door. So you see contradiction after contradiction. So whether it's a white woman here in New York City trying to kill 4 police officers in one fell swoop, or a white police officer in Dallas that's trying to kill a black man who she's got a problem with, whether it's of a sexual nature or whatever it might have been, they are allowed the latitude of lying. They can just make up stories. When one story don't work, you just go to another story. If that one don't fly, you go to another story. And this is predicated on hoping that the white police officers finally nod their head and say, yes, that's the one we going with because that's more plausible than the other ones. So this white woman who blamed it on a black man, and there's no other point now, got descriptive. Said it's a thick black man with thin dreadlocks, multicolored. So he had on a rainbow dreadlocks. Now, if you have rainbow dreadlocks on, you're going to get picked up by police officers because you just tried to kill 4 of them. So she got creative with all that crap, the same way Geiger went from lie to lie to lie to lie, and when she killed both of John. So that's what white people, even the ones you think are your friends, they're gonna play that white card when it get thick. And luckily that white man, when they tracked his behind down, because they had his fingerprints, he right away said, I gave it to her. Which exonerated any potential black man that would have got the stuffing whipped out of him if he survived that arrest.
Hey, Julian, what I wanted to say in my, what I finished last time is to point out how this racism is gender neutral. I mean, it's not gender, no, it's gender neutral. It's a white man and a white woman collectively having this mindset. And then we talked about on our program one time when even a black child, her mother was scolding her for eating some cupcakes. The black child said a black man broke into the apartment and ate the cupcakes. So even though she might have been all of 5 years old, at that young, tender age, when her mother pointed out who ate these cookies, didn't have a right to go with these cookies, didn't have permission, at the age of 5, this little white female child said it was a black man.
That's right. And you know yourself, as you pointed out several weeks ago, when the white police officer asked the white woman for her license and registration.
Right.
Well, the woman got so nervous, which is understandable. She was nervous, trying to pull out. She wanted to go to her wallet, but thought the wallet must have been near her body. Consequently, she didn't want to put her hand down near her body where the police officer didn't have a clear view of her hands. Consequently, she told the white police officer, "I'm scared." She said, "I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm nervous." He reassured her by saying, "You're white." He pointed it out and told her, "You don't have anything to worry about. You're white. We kill black people."
Right.
That's what the police officer told her. Reminded her in her nervousness, "You are white.
Right.
We don't kill white people. We kill black people." That's what the police officer said.
Well, one thing I think we need to remember in this particular case that we're talking about initially, there were a lot of provocateurs in these at these protests. So I don't believe that this woman had any support for African people. I don't believe this woman had anything to do with position was of Black Lives Matter. I think what she's doing, she was a provocateur. I think what she was doing was intentional, and it had nothing to do with what the protests were about. So I don't give her any credit. I don't think that she flipped the script at the end and said, "Oh, I'm going to blame somebody black." That was her intention, her way of operation, my thoughts, me speaking for me, from the beginning. So I'm not surprised that this woman would do anything so heinous.
Well, I agree with you, Julian, but the only thing that I would add to it is when a black person is caught doing that type of heinous act, they're going to be investigated. Why don't they investigate white people when they commit these heinous acts? Why don't they do what the FBI calls develop a web and find out who all their associates are? Go into their computers, go into their smartphones and find out who their associations are. Why don't they do real investigations and find out, are they involved in white supremacist militias? Are they involved in white supremacist organizations? Whether it's the Klan, regardless of whether it might be. The FBI has already pointed out that white supremacist organizations are entering into police agencies all over the country in their research in 2008, 2011, 2012, again in 2015. The FBI is continuously updating their material. They're saying white supremacist organizations are joining law enforcement agencies. Consequently, when women like that, and I agree with you, Julian, whether she's Black Lives Matter or whatever, her love is not for black people, because as soon as she got caught, she blamed the crime on black people and said she felt compelled, she had to do it because she was the only white person there. So with black people saying, show you real, here, take this, she wanted to show good that, no, I'm down with y'all. That's a damn lie. Consequently, I agree, but there needs to be more intense and pervasive investigations to find out what's truly going on with these people and who their associates are.
Well, so that's my point. I'm sorry, Noel. That's my point, Michael. Now, if they believe that she or her story was true, then if that was in fact the case, then that's where it would have ended, if that was the case. But the fact that she was a provocateur, the fact that she was a plant, the fact that I believe that she was there intentionally to cause disruption, and she have connections to right-wing groups, that's where there should be a further investigation. So we're talking about the same thing and we're totally in agreement.
Yeah, and one thing we always see is that white criminals are even extended white skin privilege. We see, and I don't know how many cases, there's a gang of whites who commit a crime against an African American, be it police or civilian. They only arrest one, they only prosecute one, they only terminate one. When you had others around, that Michael talk about that web, is not extended. Everybody's actions is not held, accountable. So white criminals are given white skin privilege. I doubt if it was only this white female and this one male. They probably belong to a group of individuals who concocted this idea. And as Julian stated, had in the back of their head, listen, if you get caught, blame it on the black guy. But as we see in civilians, as we see it in police officers, when a group of white police officers are engaged in criminality, they only go for that one or two. They don't get everybody who's involved. And that's that's part of the racist system.
Right. Okay, all right. I'm going to go into another subject, and please detect the tone of my voice as I give you the information on this particular subject. It is reported that in a historic movement, North Carolina City approves reparations for their black residents. In Asheville, North Carolina, Asheville City Council has apologized for the North Carolina city's historic role in slavery, discrimination, black denial of basic liberties, and black residents. Now, they don't mandate that there's going to be any financial payment for these atrocities, but what they're going to do is they're going to give affordable housing, increase monetary benefits. They're going to help with healthcare, education, employment pay, neighborhood safety, and fairness within the criminal justice system. So this is what they're going to give as reparations. Now, again, I hope you detect the tone of my voice. I think that is the most ludicrous response to reparations, because everything that they're offering are things that should normally and taxpayers are paying for. So all these things should automatically be given to, made available to black members of that particular city and that community by the city council. So for them to couch this or phrase this as reparations is so nonsensical, so unfair, and it's an insult to the community. I'm sorry that I'm so passionate about it, but when I read that article, I was just amazed that someone would even have the audacity, because there are black members, part of that city council, that signed up with this. Noel, Mike, whichever one.
Well, one good thing about this story is that the city allegedly admitted their responsibility in the enslavement of Africans. They admitted their culpability. And when you look at the word reparations, the word reparations means to make amends for a wrong that was done. So they admitted that a wrong was done, which is good. One thing that they also attempted to, as Julian has pointed out, we did a wrong and we're going to tell you how we're going to make up for that wrong. No, that's not how it goes. You admit that you're wrong. Now let us tell you how we think we deserve to be amended for our wrong. I think it's hypocritical, as you stated, Julian. This is something that I don't know why they would think we're naive enough to fall for these, stupid crumbs, as you stated, Julian, that they're supposed to provide because we pay taxes. And the services that they're talking about paying, affordable housing, healthcare, equal justice under the law, this is what our tax dollars pay for right now. So this is no reparations. So yes, after having admitted that they committed a wrong, members of North Carolina should now say, okay, we're taking you to court because you already admitted that you're culpable, that you're responsible, that you committed a wrong. Now let us determine how we want to be amended for the wrong that you've done. But I agree with you, Julian Harper. It's nonsensical. The services that they're offering under the guise of reparations are simply the services that they should provide taxpaying citizens anyway.
Right.
Well, certainly when one considers North Carolina as part of the former Confederacy, and it was extremely brutal in terms of black men working from sun up to sundown for tobacco, cotton, sugar, rice, all the things one can imagine they worked tirelessly for. And when you consider what is being offered now, these are the basics of a society. These are the basics. Adequate housing, whether it's low income, streets are being cleaned, opportunities in terms of employment, educational opportunities. This is what a system is supposed to be. So if you have the best locations now for yourself with respect to housing, with respect to jobs, and now you're saying out of what's left, we're going to look out for you. Well, you've already taken the best for yourself. I guarantee you that the best houses are already taken up, the best land, the best parks, the best arable land is already taken. There's not much left. So now the builders want to come in and build. So you utilize the developers and say, okay, we're going to develop some affordable housing. Where the profit's going to go? To the developers. And then the recipients, into some black people, that's what a society is supposed to do. Consequently, that these are just meaningless words. This is nothing other than some theatrics that one could imagine is being utilized now. And it's an insult to your intelligence for anyone to even tell you these are reparations. These are normal things that a so-called first world society is supposed to be. Now in a third world, so-called third world situation where there's not much to go around is one thing, but in the land of plenty, that is just foolishness to even consider. That's reparations. If you do well in school and high school, junior high school and high school, there should be a system in place, even if you don't have the money to go to college, for you to be able to go. That's not reparations. North Carolina can never repay the black man and woman for what it did after slavery. I'm not even talking about hundreds of years of free labor and oppression, hangings, lynchings, beatings, raping of our women, because our women were theirs. They owned them. That's not even the point. They can't even pay for what they did after 1865 to the present. As Noel points out, it would make them look so savage. If you pointed out the history, as Frederick Douglass pointed out, just from 1865 to 2020, it would be so brutal that it would embarrass America. So they will not ever pay us for the reparation. They can never put together a plan to give us what we deserve, because the amount would be so high, they would be unwilling to pay. And white people don't give you anything. You can't show a history where white folks give anything. They don't share anything. They take everything for themselves. And if there's some scraps left over, they will throw it out on the floor and watch you run and fight for that little bit that's left. They don't share power. The white man believes in power and doesn't believe in sharing power with anyone, anywhere over in the world. Look no further than what you see in China right now. The white man's demanding, telling the Chinese government they still want to control Hong Kong. They still want to control Taiwan, but the people in Taiwan are not Taiwanese. They're Chinese. The people in Hong Kong are Chinese. Yet the white man from America and the white man in England are trying to tell them that that land still belongs to them. That just shows you the arrogance of white supremacy.
All right. Next topic. I know we all remember Jenna 6. Theo Shaw was one of the Jenna 6, and he just graduated law school. Noel?
Yes, Theo Shaw, who was one of the victims of the Jenna 6 conspiracy. Those of you remember, some white students had threatened some black students. The black students got together, defended themselves. They got the best of the white students, who turned around and called the police. And you had 6 individuals, high school individuals, arrested. This individual stayed in jail. Brother Theo Shaw stayed in jail for 6 months because he couldn't afford the bail. Fortunately, when he completed his responsibility, because he wound up pleading to lesser charges. Fortunately, he didn't allow that to destroy his life. You know, this particular incident only motivated him. He attended University of Louisiana. After graduating from there, he graduated from the University of Washington Law School and passed a bar exam. And he was recently sworn in as an attorney, by a black Supreme Court judge. And, he's licensed to practice law in Louisiana as well as Washington. So we commend our young brother, and he has committed himself to being an attorney. He didn't join the prosecutorial line of prosecutors like a lot of people do, because it's an easy job, you get a lot of experience. he wants to be a defense attorney, and he promised to advocate on behalf of indigent clients because he apparently have not forgotten where he came from. So, I just wanted to point out, Brother Theo Shaw, congratulations that he didn't allow this the racist criminal justice system in his state and the local law enforcement officers to destroy his life, to destroy his dream. He kept the faith and he kept his momentum to do better. And we commend him for his, now being an attorney.
Right.
Big ups and thank you, Noel, for pointing that out. Certainly, we need to hear good news like that. As you well remember, in the Gina 6, it was the district attorney and the prosecutor in that area who told the 6 young men, he said, "I can change your lives with the stroke of my pen."
That's right.
Threatened them. Right. Now, he didn't threaten the white guy who pulled a shotgun on one of the Gina 6 members, pulled a shotgun, and when the black man did a quick move, reminiscent of Moses' power, and took the gun right out of the white guy's hands, they turned around and charged the black man for taking his gun. That theft of services, whatever criminal charge they gave, they charged him. So I never forgot how the district attorney treated those men and let them know that with the stroke of his pen, he can destroy all of their lives. So Noel, big ups for finding out that many of them are doing well, and one in particular is now an attorney of record and will now fight the good fight and help those who are less fortunate.
Right. All right. Michael, Jennifer McLeggins in Valley Stream is being harassed by a neighbor, and I know that you're taking a very strong position on this particular case.
Yeah, just want to say briefly with respect to time, I was out there yesterday. This sister in 2020, a registered nurse, bought the house 2.5 years ago, is being harassed by her white neighbor. Now, this area is predominantly in Valley Stream. It's a black area, but this is a reflection on all of us, especially black men, that he can outright disrespect her and try to force her to leave. And he is encircled by all of these black men that walk around every day. He's throwing feces on her property. She has been cited and summoned by the Valley Stream Police Department for having dog feces in her yard. She does not even have a dog. She got a camera. The camera has shown him throwing feces in the yard. He also threw a dead squirrel there, which is threatening her life, actually. So she is enduring all of those things. So I went out there yesterday to check it out, and certainly the march and rally will be tomorrow, which by the time this is shown, but it'll be on Thursday, I think the 16th, which is tomorrow, actually. We're taping on Wednesday, so that'll be Thursday tomorrow at 5 p.m. People will gather at the train station at Valley Stream and then walk to her house. But just big kudos, let me just say briefly, big kudos to the young brothers. There was a brother there yesterday that actually, 2 brothers that did her yard. They cut her lawn, they hooked up the hedges and did everything around the house, the front, the side. They did all of that for free. They did a professional job, hooked up her front and side, and they did it for free. They just came by and hooked her up just to show we love. I saw people dropping off cases of water to her because it's going to be a big rally there tomorrow. You know, big ups to all of those who participated in that. So the community is showing their support. But black men, you got to show that you will defend black women so that white men like this will not feel entitled to believe that he could put his hands on and threaten her. And he also showed a sidearm that he was wearing one day and her camera caught it. So whether it was real or not, he's showing her that her life is in danger.
Right. Yeah, that was a pretty scary film. You know, there's a lot of things he does that night. You know, he actually looked like he had a firearm in his hand when he walked up to a window And this is a sister who lives by herself, I think, just with her young daughter.
Yeah.
So clearly this white man feels that he can intimidate her and threaten her. So big kudos to you, Mike, and all of those who are going out there tomorrow to show support. And this dispel all these notions that some naive amongst us have that we don't stick together. You know, a lot of people are coming to her assistance in a time of need, and you know, we commend them for doing that.
Absolutely. And, you know, as opposed to having this white man feel empowered to do what he's doing, you know, these brothers and Michael, yourself, are empowering this sister to understand that she has support from the community and that no one's going to allow her to be subjected to this without a response. So again, like you said, Noel, man, big ups, we appreciate it. Very quickly, and we're running out of time, I know last weekend Noel reminded everyone about this COVID-19 and how it's affecting our community and how we have to be vigilant and make sure that we stay focused. There was a patient, a Black gentleman, paralyzed, and he was convalescent. He was paraplegic. His name was Michael Hickson. He recently died of COVID-19, and I'll make this quick, because his doctors felt that because he was a paraplegic and he was partially brain damaged, they said it wasn't worth they felt like they didn't want to extend the energy to make sure he stayed alive. His wife was trying to fight for his life. He was, even though he had these ailments, he was able to communicate with his wife. He was able to understand his wife. And, you know, she wanted to fight for her husband's life. But because these doctors felt that it wasn't worth putting the effort to ensure that he stays alive, this young man died. So my point is that we have to be very careful and cautious, even with the medical community, and ensure that we watch over each other, make sure that we take this COVID-19 thing very seriously, because people are losing their lives and our community is being affected at a higher rate than white communities. So let's just stay focused and make sure that we watch over each other relative to everything, but including this COVID-19. All right. Okay, we're running out of time, so we're gonna have our closing statements. Noel?
All right, Liddy Lou, Kitty Cat, Little Mo, I love you. Community Cop family, I love you. And as Julian stated, as it relates to this pandemic, you know, families continue to be vigilant, continue to be careful.
Big Mike?
Yes, big ups to Pastor Danilo Archibald, you know, who's organized the community out there in Valley Stream. Stay strong, brother. Brother come out of 40 Projects, Noel. You might know him. Good brother, strong brother, down to earth. Black man, black woman, protect the black child. Accept your own and be yourself.
Yeah. And to the Greys family, the Leader family, we love you. Harper family, I love you. Darlene, I know you watching. I don't have the glasses on today. She told me not to wear the glasses. So I don't have the glasses on today. And family, man, we got a lot of work to do. We appreciate you guys watching us. We love you. Any information you guys want us to talk about, I know Noel talks about being able to contact us via the internet and via Facebook and YouTube. So you guys reach out. We appreciate your energy and your information. Keep watching. Community Cop family, we love you. We got to thank you, Veronica. You're doing a phenomenal job. We greatly appreciate you. Sheila Berry, we appreciate you holding us down with the Bronx. Nat Woods, man, we love you. We thank you guys. And Big D, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. You know, we appreciate your support, and thanks a lot. See you next week. Community Cop, Noel.
Big D, feel better. Peace.
There you go. All right.